The question isn't whether compounding works. The question is how much you have to invest before compounding starts working like a second deposit. Because a $50 monthly investment and a $500 monthly investment both compound. They both use the same math. They both benefit from time, but after 30 years, using the same 7% example return, one lands around $61,000, the other lands around $610,000. So if compounding still feels slow to you, that doesn't automatically mean you're doing something wrong. It may mean you're still in the part of the journey where you're the engine. The account is moving, but it's not yet helping much. Investor.gov's compound interest calculator gives away the whole secret in its inputs. It asks for a starting amount, a monthly contribution, the length of time, an estimated annual interest rate, a range around that rate, and how often the money compounds. The word compounding is only one part of the machine. The monthly amount and the runway decide how much work the machine can actually do. That's the hidden contradiction. Financial advice often says, start small and let compounding do the work. But in the beginning, compounding barely has anything to work on. A tiny balance earning a return is still a tiny balance. For a while, the deposits matter more than the interest. That early stage can feel weird because the habit is visible, but the reward is quiet. You see the money leave your checking account every month. You feel the sacrifice immediately, but the account growth arrives as a small line item, and some months the market may move backward anyway. So the first emotional trap is thinking, if this were really working, it would already look bigger. In reality, the machine usually needs a base before it can feel useful. Even the official contribution limits show why how much is a real question. In 2026, the IRA limit is $7,500 a year, which is $625 a month. The 401k type employee limit is $24,500 a year, or about €2,042 a month. For many people, those aren't casual numbers. They're a reminder that compounding has fuel requirements. Here's the first reveal. Take Maya's $500 a month. At a 7% example return, after 10 years, she has about $86,500. She put in $60,000 herself. The growth is real, but most of the pile still came from her paycheck. After 20 years, the picture changes. The balance is about $260,000, and more than half comes from growth. After 30 years, the total is about $610,000, and growth has become the majority of the account. That's the second deposit machine. At first, Maya is the only one making serious deposits. Then the account starts adding a little. Then, if the amount and the runway are large enough, growth becomes the bigger worker in the room. It doesn't replace her instantly. It joins her slowly. That's why balance size matters so much. A $10,000 balance earning 7% for a year is roughly $700 before volatility and timing. Helpful, but not life-changing. A $100,000 balance at the same rough rate is about $7,000. A $500,000 balance is about $35,000. Same percentage. Totally different practical meaning. The return rate didn't become magical. The base got large enough for the same percentage to produce a number you can feel. That slow start matters because many households aren't beginning from giant balances. In the Federal Reserve's 2022 survey of consumer finance's public extract, about 54.3% of families had any quasi-liquid retirement assets. The median across all families was $4,000. Among families that had those assets, the median was $87,000. That's not a moral judgment, it's context. A lot of people are trying to build the machine after real life has already been taking pieces of the paycheck. This is why clean compound interest charts can accidentally make normal people feel broken. A calculator can start at zero, add the same amount every month, assume a smooth return, and never miss a deposit. Real households don't always get that clean line. They get job changes, rent increases, repairs, childcare, medical bills, debt payments, and months where the smart move may be rebuilding cash instead of investing more. The chart can still teach the math, but it shouldn't erase the mess. And the runway is uneven. The same SCF extract shows retirement account ownership changing by age, from about 49.6% under 35 to about 57% among ages 55 to 64. The script doesn't need every age bar spoken out loud, but the visual point is simple. People reach the compounding question from different starting lines. The return assumption changes the story too. NYU Stern's historical return data shows very different long-run paths for stocks, treasury bills, and treasury bonds from 1928 through 2025. A rough derived annual growth rate for the S&P 500 over that span is about 10%. T-bills are closer to 3.4%. 10-year Treasury bonds are around 4.5%. History is not a promise, but it shows why one neat compound interest example can be wildly different from another. That's why the phrase really benefit can't mean one magic number. It has to mean benefit enough for what job, over what time, using what assumption. A $100 monthly habit may be a good start. A $500 monthly habit may be a future income engine. A $1,000 monthly habit may change the entire shape of the chart, but those are different jobs. The easiest mistake is treating those three outcomes like versions of the same promise. They're not. In the 30-year 7% example, $100 a month gets to about $122,000. That's meaningful money, but it probably isn't a full retirement engine by itself. $500 a month gets to about $610,000. That could become a serious part of a plan. $1,000 a month gets to about $1.22 million. That's a different level of fuel. Same runway, same assumed return, different monthly commitment. For Maya, that means the question isn't, is $100 good or bad? It's, what does $100 need to do? If it needs to build the habit, that's one answer. If it needs to replace a future bill, that's another. If it needs to create a major retirement bridge, that's a much bigger assignment. This is where the conversation has to stay human. In the same 2022 Fed data, 56.5% of families reported saving in the preceding year, while 43.5% didn't. So when people hear just invest more, many are hearing a sentence that skips the hard part, finding the money in the first place. The current backdrop doesn't make that easier. Fred's Personal Saving Rate series, sourced from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, showed 2.6% in April 2026. That's an aggregate number, not your personal budget. But it does capture the pressure around the question. The average room between income and spending can feel thin. And that pressure explains the emotional reaction. In the 2026 EBRI Retirement Confidence Survey, 61% of workers said they were confident they would have enough money in retirement. Only 58% were confident they could keep up with inflation and cost of living in retirement, and 43% said they didn't know where to go for good financial or retirement planning advice. So the viewer's confusion isn't strange. The system gives people slogans, then asks them to make monthly decisions. Maya's decision now becomes more realistic. Maybe $100 is easy enough to keep. Maybe $250 is possible if one bill changes. Maybe $500 requires a real trade-off. The point isn't to shame one number and praise another. The point is to stop asking a tiny number to do a giant job without admitting the gap. A small deposit can be the right first step and still be too small for the biggest promise. So here's the midpoint turn. The useful question is not just, what can I spare each month? The useful question is, what job do I need this monthly investment to do by a certain date? If the job is habit builder, the number can be small, because the main product is consistency. If the job is bill helper, the amount has to be large enough to matter against a real future bill. If the job is income engine, the monthly amount, time, and return assumption all have to be big enough for growth to become a serious contributor. If the job is retirement bridge, then the numbers need a full plan around them. This reframe also protects you from the two bad extremes. One extreme says any amount is enough if you just believe in compounding. The other says small amounts are pointless. Both are too simple. The better answer is that every amount has a job it can do well and a job it can't do alone. The $100 habit may be powerful if it becomes $250 later. The $250 habit may be powerful if it starts early. The $500 habit may be powerful if it survives real life. The second deposit test makes that concrete. In one example using $100 a month, the year when annual growth first exceeds annual contributions depends heavily on the return assumption. Around 4% it happens near year 18, around 5% year 14, around 7% year 10, around 10% year 7. The same $100 doesn't have the same timeline in every world. That's why compounding can feel fake early on. You may be doing the right habit, but the second deposit hasn't arrived yet. The account is still too small, the return may be too low, or the time runway may not be long enough. The math may be working exactly as designed while the feeling still says, is this all? The waiting period is not a failure, it's the price of building the base. And this is where patience and sizing meet. Patience without enough fuel may leave you disappointed. Fuel without enough time may require a much larger monthly amount than you expected. The second deposit test doesn't make the decision easy, but it makes the trade-off visible. Then there are the drags. The SEC's investor bulletin gives a simple fee scenario: a $100,000 portfolio, a 4% annual return, and 20 years with ongoing fees of 0.25%, 0.50%, or 1%. Using that setup, the no-fee path is about $219,000. At a 1% ongoing fee, the path is about $181,000. The fee doesn't just remove the fee, it removes the future return that fee could have earned. That's the part people miss. A small percentage can become a large drag because it takes money out of the machine while the machine is trying to grow. Fees are not automatically bad. Some services cost money. But if the whole video is about the second deposit, then every recurring drag deserves attention. Inflation is another drag, but it works differently. In the $500 monthly example, 30 years at 7% nominal gives about $610,000. If you look through a rough 4% real-ish lens, the number is closer to $347,000. That's not a prediction, it's a reminder that the future balance and the future buying power are not the same thing. Fred's CPI page explains why that caution matters. CPI is a broad price index. It measures a basket for urban consumers, not your exact grocery cart, rent, insurance, health costs, or family situation. So the useful move is not to obsess over one perfect inflation number. It's to remember that nominal dollars need a buying power check. This is also why big balances can be emotionally misleading. A future number may look huge in today's dollars, but the future is where the money actually gets spent. If prices rise, if fees are high, or if taxes apply when the money comes out, the account has to clear more than one hurdle. The machine isn't just building a balance, it's trying to build usable future choices. Automation can help, but it doesn't answer the whole question. Vanguard's 2026 How America Saves page points to plan features like participation, automatic enrollment, professionally managed allocation, and target date funds. Those systems can help the habit run, but automatic saving still has to be sized. A default can start the machine. It doesn't always tell you whether the machine is big enough for the job. So now the open loop can close. When does compounding really start helping? Not on day one, not because a post online says it will. It starts helping in a visible way when the account balance becomes large enough that growth can compete with your own deposits. One clean version of the test is this: when annual growth starts to match or exceed annual deposits, the account is no longer only following you, it's working beside you. For $100 a month, the annual deposit is $1,200. In the example math, the crossover can arrive around year 18 at 4%, but around year 10 at 7%. That gap is the whole story. The monthly amount matters, but the assumption and runway decide when the second worker shows up. The practical framework is simple. First, name the job. Is this money supposed to build a habit, cover a future bill, create a future income stream, or support retirement? Second, choose the monthly amount you can actually sustain. Third, choose a realistic range of returns, not one perfect number. Fourth, subtract the drags, fees, taxes where relevant, and inflation. Then ask the key question: when does growth become meaningful compared with what I am putting in? For Maya, $500 a month over 30 years might look powerful in the 7% example, because the account reaches about $610,000 and growth is most of the ending balance. But if the job is to replace a full paycheck, that may still be only one part of the plan. If the job is to help pay future bills, it may be meaningful. If the job is just to build the habit, even a smaller amount can be a win. That's the calm answer hiding under the big title. There isn't one monthly number that makes compounding real for everyone. There's a monthly number that fits a specific job, a specific timeline, and a specific set of assumptions. The more honest the inputs are, the less magical the output looks. And weirdly, that's what makes the idea more useful. So if your number looks too small, the next move is not panic, it's diagnosis. Is the goal too large for the current monthly amount? Is the timeline too short? Is the assumed return too optimistic? Are fees or inflation quietly eating the outcome? Or is the goal actually smaller than the scary examples online? Once you know which part is mismatched, the problem becomes more practical and less personal. This also keeps the episode from shaming small amounts. A small investment is not worthless. It can teach the habit, it can create a starter balance, it can make future increases easier. But a small amount with a short runway should not be asked to do the job of a large amount with 30 or 40 years behind it. Compounding is not a magic trick you believe in, it's a machine you size. The monthly amount is the fuel, time is the runway, and the real question is when the engine starts adding deposits of its own. If this helped you see compounding as a machine instead of a slogan, like the video, comment with the monthly amount or time horizon you want explained next, and subscribe for more clear money breakdowns. Thanks.